starting the recording.
Okay, we are recording tonight. If anybody else wants to record, you feel free to do so, and you can, disseminate it however you want, because this is not, I don't care. Well, welcome everybody, and I'm glad you came back. We have a powerful night tonight, interesting topics to cover. And I just want to, as people are still logging in here, I want to mention again, my name is Mary Cunningham. I've been teaching this course for 41 years, and I started in 1980. That was my first course. And when I first started teaching, it was pretty much just parapsychology, paranormal, that kind of thing, auras and past life regressions and, that kind of things. And then the past life regressions led me into realizing that history seems to be a little different from our history books, because under past life regressions, they were telling, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. And I'm like, well, that's not in our history books. So you start getting into archaeology and really understanding that there's so many buildings and rocks and stones and remnants from ancient civilizations that far exceed our technology today that is not reflected in our history books. So I got into all that. And that, of course, brings you into the UFO arena. So I have the parapsychology or, new age type thing. And then I get into the archaeology, and then I get into the conspiracy theory. So this all intertwines together. And you'll see that as we talk through all this, that it pulls in one direction or the other. And in the 80s, I taught a certain thing. And as all of you know, as we learn, we grow, and we find out there's more and more to it. So you have to have an open mind. Things that you think, okay, I think I know, I think I got it. Oh, no, you don't. So, you're constantly changing. And even tonight, as we go through this material, our understanding's here. The reality is probably much further out, and we can't even understand it necessarily. So, we'll just explore it together and see what happens. Okay. All right. I just wanted to go through too. I apologize for any of you that were not with us last week because it was St. Patrick's Day. I would not have scheduled a class had I remembered or realized it, but it was what it was, and our schedule has been laid out. So you missed, if you did miss the class, I'm going to review a little bit tonight because you need to know that to understand what we're going to. Because last week we talked about the soul and the soul in the human body. So I'm going to go into that just a minute. Tonight we're going to talk about the near-death experience. We're going to talk about life after death, the astral world. Where do we go? Who doesn't go? What happens to them if they don't go? And absolutely respect everyone's religion. I am not trying to convince anybody of anything, but when I study and research and I find certain material that's repeated, whether it's in the Theosophical Society or it's in the, this or that, you find a repetition and you feel a little more comfortable that it's possible that there's some validity to this. So that's what we're going to cover tonight, and that'll bring us to reincarnation next week. So next week we are going to cover life before life. Do we choose to come back? If we choose to come back, why? And there's some very interesting, the law of karma, why we're here, all of that kind of stuff is a lot of fun to talk about. And the week of April 7th, we're going to talk about ancient civilizations, Atlantis, Lemuria. We're going to talk about some of the history, some of the archaeological digs, like in Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey. Fascinating archaeological dig there. We're going to talk about inner Earth, Antarctica, Admiral Byrd, and the DUMBs. The DUMBs are deep military underground bases and how they're blowing them up right now. All the earthquakes around the earth, those aren't earthquakes, those are blowing up the DUMBs for a very good reason. Ancient hidden technology, and discuss all that. April 14th is it's a holiday for schools. So I did not schedule a class that night just in case people go on vacations, because we are all been cooped up for a year. And all we can see is the spring break going down on in Florida. And I think we're all about to that desire of cutting loose and getting outside and enjoying life again. However, if we get closer and I don't have anything planned and some of you guys don't have anything planned, we may open up for a free-for-all, you know, and just have questions at night and discussions, an open mic, let's say. So we'll see how we are in another couple of weeks, what people want to do. And then week number 5, I'm going to talk about the Secret Space Program, which is going to blow your mind if you don't know all about the Secret Space Program, which has existed since the 50s. We've been going to Mars, we've been going to the moon, all over the place. And the last week, we're going to talk about UFOs. We're going to bring it down and back to the researchers and the tangible, the evidence, all that kind of thing for the UFO arena. Types of aliens, why are they here? How long have they been here? What's their agendas? And we usually find that all this material will take us over into a 7th week. So Mike has scheduled a 7th week also in case we need it, okay? All right, so tonight we're going to talk about near-death experience, the out-of-body experience, but I want to reset the stage here. Last week we talked a little bit about the this little picture I held up there, and I'm going to just mention this again. I'm not going to go into details, but I want to mention it again because this class and all the other classes are basically based on the premise that the soul enters the human body and exists in the human body for the time period that we experience Earth life. It dies, we slip out of the human form, and we continue to exist. Tonight, we're going to talk about where we go, where this goes. This goes in the ground, okay, gets buried. This goes somewhere else. This is the I am, my memories, all my knowledge, all my essence, my love, my mind. This is the brain over here. This is the mind. All of this continues. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight about where we go. This is also important, and we mentioned last week, because this human animal, the human form, has the DNA. It has your genealogy. This is the genealogy of being an Irish person, okay? All your genes, all your DNA, it reflects the history of that DNA chronological structure. This soul may have been Irishman, it could have been a Spanish person, it could have been a Chinese person. It has many, many lifetimes already as different people in different places, so is not connected to a DNA genealogy, but it also has its history, its past history, and that is maintained. But it comes in here to the human animal or human body to experience life on Earth. If the soul went to another planet or place, existence, that had a different form, the soul would go into that form to experience life on that planet, okay? So think of the movie Avatar, where you slip into it and experience life on Avatar land, whatever place that was. So this soul is independent completely of the human form. It was not created by your parents. It existed long before. I've had many, many lifetimes. I've already been regressed 25 times, many different lives. And that is in your memory. That is in your essence. But you come in, you need to function here on Earth. You need to know how to run. You need how to eat and be afraid and to whatever. That's what this brings, okay? So that was kind of what we covered last week. And tonight we're going to be talking about where does this go after death, okay? All right, now, anybody have any questions on that? And, you know, you feel free to turn off your mic if you're not talking or whatever, or if you have other people that you need to talk to, turn off the mic. But when you want to talk to me, just let me know, because I have a tendency to get going and I barely pause for breathing. but there's so much to cover and so much to say. Just say, Mary, hey, I only see 4 people on the bottom of my screen because I need the screen to show pictures and to see what I'm showing you. So if you need to cut in, just, yell at me and say, Mary, I have something to say.
Yeah, real quick, because you mentioned about the soul that can be in different, different types of people, different planets and stuff like that. Do you think that it made me think of the but I think it's the Hindus, the Indians with the caste system and all that, and it's not always another human. And do you think that maybe that's where they get the whole thing about like the cow was I think the highest being on this earth, and that your soul can get reincarnated or however they view it is reincarnated as different things. You come back as either as a stork or a dung beetle, depending on how you lived your previous life. And I'm just wondering if you think that ties into it at all. If that's any kind of, it just mean when you mentioned that about coming into different, whether it's different countries or different planets, that.
Well, I think it's a great question, and I haven't really researched it enough, but I'm going to give you 2 kind of thoughts about this. The first thing is the level of frequency of the human soul is a vibration that's very high. And for it to come down into a beetle, it could blow it up because the vibration and the energy of that soul is so much higher than particular life forms. But could they come into a tiger or a lion? I won't say that I've studied it enough to say yes or no. I would say possible. And there's a possibility. How much would you learn and grow and experience in a cow? It'd be kind of like going back to first grade and sitting in a first grade classroom. You'd be bored out of your mind. So I think as the soul wants to evolve and to grow, they would want to do that in the best form possible. So therefore, they would be more inclined to use human forms. But maybe a tiger or a panther or something might be something that would be very interesting to be for a period of time. But I have not pursued that level, that kind of information to be able to even really speak to it. So
yeah, I'd go with an elephant if I had a choice.
All right. Well, they're very gentle and they're very intelligent creatures. Just don't live in India. Maybe live in the Bronx Zoo or something where they treat you very well.
Yeah, that's sad, but right. Yeah, and the cows, for that matter, that are in India, even though they're supposed to be sacred beings, and nobody, they don't eat beef, obviously, but they just neglect them. They're walking around the streets. They're eating cardboard. They're skinny as rails. They're emaciated, and it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I'm getting off track. But yeah, thanks.
Well, one more thing about the caste system. The India believe that if you're born in a certain caste, you should be left there to experience your karma. One of the beauty of God's empowering us for free will is for us to have the ability to make sure no one goes to bed hungry, that no one goes to bed freezing cold, to be able to change the world to make it a better place. And that would mean that we would never look at somebody saying you deserve to be who you are. Our job is to always try to help. And if God does not want that person to be helped, nothing you can do will help them, or they will be put in a position where you wouldn't have the opportunity to help them. So I just want to kind of mention that we are empowered by God to change the world to make it a better place. And there's no such thing as a person deserves to be. In fact, the person may be there to try to test you and to help you grow and to make you into a better person by selfless helping others. So, okay. All right. One of the things that I teach is to see auras, and around everybody are colors. And when I teach it in class, I put people up in front of a whiteboard and we kind of stare at you, and colors will manifest. They're always there, but it's hard to see them. And unless you're up against a whiteboard. And when you're up against a whiteboard, you stare at these people in like little colors, like blues and yellows, and these colors will manifest. And this is called the astral aura. Now, there's also a thing called the etheric aura. And the etheric aura it's like an outline of the human body. And that's always like a gray and a blue color. It's stagnant, it doesn't move. But your astral aura is like your soul body. And it kind of like if you're feeling wonderful, it gets larger. If you feel scared, it goes into you. So this little drawing here is kind of a pathetic, but it's a little picture. We have the physical body, and then we have these energies that surround us. And I'm an empath. If I sit next to somebody, what I'm picking up are all these energies that are coming off of this person, which is really their soul. Their soul's peeking out. The soul can't be kept inside just the human form. It's kind of vibrating all around you in a big ball, a big circle. It's like it's in the front of you, it's in behind you. You're like in an egg, okay? And what we can do is develop our abilities to actually see your aura. And if you ever want to try to see your aura, stand in front of a mirror, and you should be naked. If your kids ask, Dad, what are you doing? Mom, what are you doing? Just say, I'm looking at my aura. And kids see auras. Animals see auras. Kids see colors. Ask your younger kids if they see colors around you, because they do. And you usually should put like a little low light behind you, even a candle behind you, and then just stand there and stare at yourself in the mirror and see if you can pick up the colors, because each one of the colors means something. A blue aura means something. A yellow is intellectual. A blue is devotional. Or red blotches. You can see blotches in people's aura. That's indication of sickness. So I train people to kind of pick up auras, but we're not going on auras today. We're talking about the soul. But you need to see these, the list of the bodies that we occupy while here on Earth. We have the physical body, we have the etheric and the astral, the mental and the spiritual. All of these are vibrations, are kind of part of us. And when we die, the physical body disintegrates, the etheric will disintegrate, and we are left existing in what we call the soul body. The soul body is very interesting because it is an absolute perfect, identical reflection of what you look like today, with the exception of two things. You tend to start to look younger. And if you lost a limb, like you lost your leg or you lost your arm, you're going to be seen with all your appendages, which are very interesting. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the etheric body. The etheric body is that, remember I mentioned there's an aura that looks like an outline around you. This is like, I'll call it the glue or a bridge that helps the energy from the physical body and the aura to go together. And this energy, this etheric also is the repository of the chakras, the whirling force centers. I don't know if you know anything about chakras, C-H-A-K-R-A-S, the chakras, which are whirling force centers, the root chakra, the heart chakra, the crown chakra. These are, if you can see them, they are like these whirling lotus petal type things that suck in energy into the human body and outside. So it's an interchange. It dies. So when you die, both of these disappear. The etheric, however, could be what might be seen after death. It's considered like a snake skin, okay? It's like a snake skin, and it has some like molecules to it. And it could be seen as these ghostly things that float around the graveyards. Your soul has left the snake skin, soul's gone, but the snake skin hasn't totally dematerialized. So it kind of floats around and may scare everybody because there's this little remnant. And then it slowly disintegrates and it doesn't exist anymore either. Okay, and then you're existing in the astral, mental, spiritual body. And you're going to go somewhere. You're going to go to a place called the Astral Plains. And the Astral Plains okay? Again, my pathetic little picture. This is Earth. And as we die, we leave the body, and we're going to talk about the near-death experience and everything in a moment. We go up to either a higher frequency, another, it seems to be somewhere else. There is a process of movement from Earth to wherever we go, and it's called the Astral Planes. And what we do is we go to a vibration in the astral planes that resonate with us, okay? If you're a lower vibrational, evil, rotten person, you're going to gravitate towards a area in the astral plane that's with people or being or souls just like you. So consider it like hell. The higher astral planes, there's all different kinds of levels, and you're going to go to the one that kind of resonates with you. And we're going to talk about meeting your family and everything else. But where you go is actually where you were before you came down. And there's going to be souls and beings there that are going to welcome you back. So when you do go there, you're going to be in the astral body. You're going to be in this body here that has the mental and the spiritual, and it's going to actually present yourself as you look like right now. So people on the other side, on the astral planes, are going to see you just as you look like now. However, after a period of time, the astral body also dissolves and disappears, and you're going to be left in the mental spiritual body, which is like a white ball, okay, of energy. And that's how you'll exist a little bit later. Because remember, you've got to get rid of all of these, the physical, the etheric, and the astral body, because that is relative to this lifetime right now. And after you die, you've got to get rid of that, okay? I can't be Mary anymore. I got to get rid of that because I've already been John and Henry and Hugo Boo and all these other people all over, you know, in my past lives. I've had different names, I've been different places, and I had to get rid of all those each time. So I get rid of that and get ready for the next lifetime. We're going to talk about reincarnation next week. We come back and I live, we die, we go back over, and we have to forget about all our idiosyncrasies that we picked up in this lifetime. We got used to eating. I enjoy chocolate chip cookies and chocolate. Well, you got to get rid of that, okay? And for those of us who have stronger, more diabolical attachments, it's going to take longer to get rid of those, to let go of those, okay? All right, proof. Do we have any proof on this? Well, we're going to talk about the near-death experience. And the near-death experience has been investigated, analyzed by a lot of incredible people. We have one person that's done it right here in the state of Connecticut. His name is Ken Ring. Ken Ring was a professor of psychology at UConn in Storrs. And he, for any of you that are online listening to this, I am in Connecticut. So some of my conversation will be based on Connecticut. So he used to be, so he took on the research of going to Hartford Hospital and Rockville Hospital and Manchester Hospital and St. Francis Hospital and talked to people who have had a near-death experience. And this is where maybe you had a sudden heart attack or a car accident or something where you were almost declared dead and they brought you back. But while you were dead, you had a story, something incredible happened to you. In fact, Ken Ring wrote a book, I guess, Ken Ring, Life at Death, a scientific investigation of the near-death experience. And one thing that Ken did was talk to people who actually had the experience rather than people who know people who had the experience. And Ken Ring also created an organization called IANDS, IANDS, an international, I forget what all it stands for, for people who've had near-death experiences. And they used to meet in Tallinn, here in Connecticut, not too far away from where I live. But they were for people who have had a near-death experience and have been brought back, because what they experience is something that they just can't share with people who haven't had it. And they need to talk and they need to share it because it's amazing. Another leader, I thought I had another one, and Raymond Moody is another person who's done a lot of research in the near-death experience. And I was looking at this. So there's been a lot of research in life after death and the near-death experiences. So that's probably the closest that we can get to verifying that there is something that really is happening. One of the interesting things that I will mention is that over the 40 years, I've done a lot of past life regressions. We do past life regression therapy, and I use 2 or 3 professional hypnotists, and we've done hundreds of people. And I have found it very interesting when we ask them to go through a death experience in their reincarnation. They're hypnotized, they're under, we ask them, go, die, live your life. Okay, you're a peasant, you got kicked in the head by a cow. What happened next? Okay. And they go through the detail of what happened to them. Now, remember, they're hypnotized and they are telling us what is happening to them as they go through a death experience. Believe it or not, their step by step by step is exactly the same as what these near-death experiencers experience step by step by step, with one exception. And that exception is the border. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it's interesting that I won't say we get validity, but we get some, it's not scientific evidence, but it's some sort of evidence that something's going on here. Something's very interesting, because one of the points that people used to say, or scientists used to say about the near-death experience, is that it was a chemical reaction going through with their brain. But I have people lying on my floor under hypnosis that are remembering or visualizing a death experience, and they're not going through a chemical reaction because their body's just relaxing. They're just make believe, okay? And yet they're having the same steps. So that was kind of fun when we discovered this piece of information. All right, let's go through the steps of what happens in a near-death experience. And I will mention, there's all kinds of books out there for death and dying and whatever, but if you want an interesting book for fun to read that is a death experience, this is Embraced by the Light. Her name is Betty Eady, and she went on tour for a while too. She's a very interesting lady, and she had a death experience, near-death experience, where she had given birth and almost died from it, and she was out of the body and went. And so this book is very, very interesting. And I'm going to come back to it in a minute after I go through the steps, because she also followed those steps one by one by one. So there's this seems to be perfect step by step. I keep saying that. 2 other books that also have this information. And these books are very powerful. It's written by Michael Newton, both of them, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And they, the books reflect very strongly. He did a lot of research, and he did it in great detail. He hypnotized these people much lower, deeper level than we ever did. And he was very astute at asking questions that were really like making them face what they did and what they saw. And then he put it all together in books. So it's not just one person, it's all these people would tell these stories, and he'd kind of painted a picture of what these people do after they die. So these books reflect what I'm going to be telling you tonight as to the steps of what happens when you have a near-death experience. Again, we have the separation of the body, and I don't know, I doubt if you can see this picture because it's rather, yeah, it's too dark, but there's a, do you see the body here that's laying on the bed? And then it's floating up and it's attached by a thing called a silver cord, or the astral cord. And this cord is like a spider web. It's very, very skinny and tiny, but it shows that this soul is attached to the human body. And that's what we're seeing here is the soul, which is a perfect duplicate of the human body, because it's going to retain that look for a period of time. And it, in a near-death experience, what the people say is, oh my God, you know, I've had a heart attack and I'm on the gurney, I'm laying face up and the doctors are all over me, you know, looking down at me. And all of a sudden I feel this vibration, like a buzzing sensation, a vibration. And all of a sudden, boop, I'm out. Some feel that they come out through the heart chakra. Some feel that they come out through the third eye, but the soul pops out of the physical body. The physical body is laying on the gurney. The soul always floats up. They come out of the body, they float up. Okay, that makes sense. They're less dense. They're less dense, and they float up. And when they float up, the most remarkable aspect is, I am up here. My body is down there. Immediate separation between the physical body and the soul. I'm up here. I'm looking around. I can hear the doctors talking. I see the tops of their heads. And there's been tests done. Some doctors have actually, Dr. Weiss, I think, maybe in Connecticut, Dr. Weiss used to put something that was way up over on top of a locker, a red shoe or something that was very odd. And he had patients in the emergency room that commented that they saw that, which was impossible for them to see it on the gurney, from the gurney. Anyway, they say they float up and they are not in pain anymore. There's a complete relief, like, oh, thank God, I was in so much pain. Now I'm not in any pain. I'm feeling light. I can hear what they're saying. I see. So our soul has the ability to see and to hear. And I'm making calculated decisions. I am deciding and analyzing and understanding that my body looks like it's dead. Some of them go, oh, well, like, okay, it's like, that's too bad. Some of them are like, oh my God, I'm out here. How am I going to get back into the body? There's total panic, total feeling of like disassociation. But anyway, they can also, from this vantage point, they can look around, they can see through the walls. They can see all the way down the hall in the waiting room. They can see the 3 people of their family talking. They can see them through the wall. How, if you're laying here on a gurney, can you see through those walls? Okay, so now they have not only sight, but with the third eye or their soul eye, they can actually not be restricted by physical walls or ceilings. I did that one time. I died in a past life regression. I floated up through the ceiling and I was at least 100 feet up. And I was stopped and I was watching what was going to happen. And I was seeing just as perfectly as perfectly going through, I can see right through the ceiling. No problem. So anyway, they observe. And at this time, some of them say that they notice or they talk to some dead people that have shown up. And the people may say something to the fact that, you know, you've died, or, you know, there's something going on or whatever. So I won't say they're met, all of them are met, but some of them have interactions with others. In this woman's case, we're going to talk about, she was met by some people or beings that she knew from before. But this isn't always the case. What happens is that they seem to perceive a light, a bright light that kind of comes and looks like they have to go towards that light. They're called or they're pulled towards that white light. And as they decide to journey to that light, because they feel a comforting, they feel a sense of love being projected to them by that light, they are kind of drawn to that and they start heading up. And they usually say heading towards the light or they're heading up, and they feel that they are moving through space. They all indicate, I am moving from one place to another. Now, that could be through dimensions. It could be through real space. It could, we have no comprehension of what they could be moving through. We cannot simplify it that they're just moving from here to 25,000 feet above us. I think it's bigger than that. I think it's more like a shifting of dimensions maybe. But anyway, they are moving through, and as they move through and they're on this beam of light heading towards something, they feel that they're not only moving through space, but they're passing, they are aware of passing people that seem to be disoriented, confused, lost, wandering. So they're going towards this white light. And as they're going towards the white light, there's all these beings kind of like wafting around and not sure what's going on. And they're not going to the light. They're not going back to Earth. They're like in limbo. Okay. And they are aware of them passing. They've seen animals too, like in limbo. So they go and they head towards this white light. And when they get closer, they all talk about this amazing feeling of love, power, intelligence. And as they come out of the white light, the most interesting part of this is that they are met by or presented to a being of light. And they say that this bright light is a being. And some, as they look at this white light, the being begins to transform into what their religion supports. If they believe in Jesus, this being transforms itself and becomes like Jesus. They believe in Buddha, the being transforms and becomes Krishna, Buddha, whoever they feel and expect after life. That kind of is what presents itself. But all of them say the same thing, that the being is incredibly intelligent, incredibly loving. They're surrounded by love, and they just feel such rejoicing that they are embraced by this love. And as they arrive, the being kind of allows them, and maybe even asks the question, how do you feel about the life that you just lived? And the being is not acting mean. The being just asks the question, and they are immediately presented with a life review. They all say their life kind of flashes before them. And their life review, some of them say it went from childhood to then. Some of them said it went backwards. Some of them said they just saw snippets of things that were important. And as they reviewed this, many of them are overwhelmed with the feeling of being embarrassed, disappointed in themselves, even hating themselves, because not only are we shown of who we were, but how we interacted with others. And if we hurt others, we get to feel the pain that we caused others. So it's a real eye-opener, I guess. I've never had one, but it's a real eye-opener. And I'm going to ask in a few minutes if any of you have had and are willing to share it with us. But I'm going to finish with this step-by-step here. So they're overwhelmed with sadness and disappointment in themselves. And they say it's the being, it's Jesus, or it's whoever they're conversing with that says, okay, ease it up. It's okay. You are human. You are having a human experience. There's emotions. Don't be so hard on yourself. Okay. Assess it, but don't beat yourself up on it. All right. Now, at this point, many things can happen. Many different things can happen, because one of the most amazing parts of this is what they say it looks like. And if any of you want to see an interesting movie, Robin Williams did a movie years ago called What Dreams May Come. What Dreams May Come. And it was where he went to afterlife to find his wife. She died and he went after her. And it's a wonderful depiction of what people are seeing after life. And they see buildings, they see water, they see flowers, they see trees, they see people rushing about doing things, they see angels. It is a busy place and it reflects and looks just like Earth and all of the Earth things. So people think what we have is a world of thought forms, and we bring with us our relationships with buildings and flowers. But they say the flowers are amazing. They're more colorful than any color we have on Earth. They are like, they're alive and they're vibrant. And the people that are rushing about look human, okay? They all have arms and legs and they have wearing clothes or whatever, and they're rushing about and they're building things and they're making things and they're doing things. And then they say, I see angels. And they say, I saw some incredible war angels and they had swords in their hands and they were big, strong, amazing angels. And they were busy looking down and at Earth. And all of a sudden they would go charging down to Earth as if they were going to be in a fight. There are so many beautiful, incredible stories of what they see when they die. But this story kind of stops, because in a minute, we're going to talk about after you die, where do you go and what do you do? But remember, these people have not died. They are still, it's a near death. So they are being forced to go back. And all of a sudden, someone tells them, or the being tells them, or they even see some family. And the family's up there, maybe your grandma or your mom or somebody who's died on before you. They're there. And they give you a hug. Okay, here's another thing. They talk about being hugged. This is touch, okay? They grabbed me by the hand and they pulled me. There's a touch, they hugged me. So we have, in essence, touch after we die, okay? And that's amazing and interesting, because that means the astral body continues to have some sort of molecule, some sort of consistency, substance. And this comes into play later on when we talk about ghosts and their ability to move things, okay? So the astral body still has some sort of consistency and some sort of density, all right? Because you can be touched, you can be hugged, you can be pulled, okay? Hold hands. All right. So at this time, they're told, guess what? You're not dead. You got to go back. And sometimes people are like, oh no, I don't want to go back. This is so beautiful. This is so wonderful. I'm embraced in love and beauty. And why do I want to go back? But many of them are mothers or people, family members that are like, I've got to go back for my kids. I've got to go back, for whatever. And they feel happy that they get another chance to come back. The problem is when they come back, there they are on the gurney again, and they're shocking them for the 6th time to try to bring them back. And there's all the pain and the trauma, and they're right back where they started. But they had that memory. They had that incredible memory of life after death, and they believe in that. They don't believe it was a dream. They don't believe they made it up. They really believe that this is what will happen, and they no longer have the fear of dying. And that's why this IONS group, when they get together, they can share this, where we can't. If we've never had that experience, we have no idea what they're talking about. And yet when they're with others, they can share and rejoice with the beauty of what they experienced, okay? So I'm going to pause for just a minute to see if anybody has had an experience or knows somebody that has had a near-death experience. And then I'm going to talk more on what happens when you really die and where do you go and what do you do. So I'll pause and see if there's anybody that wants to say anything. Go ahead. Anybody? I'm not leaving. I'm just going to turn off a light that's in my eye. Here. Oh. Okay. Nobody.
I'd like to ask you something though, if I may. No, I didn't have any near-death experience at all. But what about the people, like you was talking about ghosts? What about those people, like those who've gone to over to Civil War cemetery, not cemeteries, battlefields, and some people will come in there and they'll see at certain times at night, they'll see a platoon of soldiers marching along, and they don't seem to hear you. They're like oblivious, and it's like they're going into battle. What is that? Is that just it's been years and years. You think that their residue would dissolve. What is that anyways?
Well, we are going to talk about ghosts in a few minutes, but I will answer your question. There is burnt residue energy that is from repeated or from dramatic occurrences. They are not the souls there anymore. What it is an impression. And the impression is so dramatic, it remains for probably hundreds of years, or it depends, because each time someone comes to look and see if they can see it, they're feeding it. So they refresh it. So it's an imprint, but your energy is refreshing it. And every time people go to kind of think about it and do it, they're refreshing it a little bit, but it will continue to die slowly, 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 slowly. And then it will not be there anymore. But we'll talk more about that in just a moment.
I just wanted to add something in here too. I haven't, well, thankfully I haven't been near death. But earlier on when you were talking about auras, and it made me think about, this was a long time ago. My mother and my sister got into this thing where they were doing like this color coordination. And so, yeah, what colors work best for you. And they put like this white, like a barber, apron around you, or whatever you want to call that thing, right? So you feel you're neutral. So it's just your face, and you've got the white, and they put lights on you. And I think you even have a white background. And then they had all these different swaths of these different colors of cloth.
Yeah.
And they lay them down on your shoulder next to your face. And they divided it up into like winter, summer, spring and fall colors. And it was really interesting. They were, it was sort of like a fad thing. They were doing it with everybody we knew. And it was really cool to see how some colors would look really good on some people.
Yeah.
And will make other people look absolutely sickly, the same colors.
Right.
And,
Right.
And so anyway, when you were mentioning that about auras and looking for the colors and stuff like that, it made me think of that. And I wonder if that maybe is tied into it somehow. But anyway, I'm an earth. I'm olive drab and gray, tan and all that. Man, you put me next to some fluorescent stuff, man, and I look ill. So yeah.
Oh, those colors, and I went through that too, whether I'm a spring or summer or fall. It has to do with your complexion, has to do with your skin color, and that kind of thing, not necessarily your auras. However, your auras could have something to do with your penchant for particular colors, but not necessarily. And your aura is kind of your, what we call your soul's desire for this particular lifetime. So you may not always be that same color aura. But it is marvelous when you look up there and look at the person, the beautiful green. And the green is a natural healer. So you would say, okay, you ought to be a nurse or a doctor. And invariably they are involved in the medical field. However, a doctor can also be a bright yellow. A bright yellow is an intellectual. There are a lot of doctors that are intellectual doctors. They're challenged by the healing process. And then, of course, you have blue, which is devotional. And blue is kind of a going color for all of us. Most everybody has some blue in their aura because we are a very devoted country. We love we're devoted to our children, we're devoted to our job, we're devoted to our pets, we're devoted. So we have a very strong devotion thing. And I think about that because one of years, I was reading an article about a man that was working in, and I don't think it was Area 51, but one of those places where there was an alien species that was coming there on an ongoing basis. And I remember he was charged with becoming friends with them, but they would come and they go, and they come and they go, and they bring their families, which is kind of interesting. And one of the things they would say is they were fascinated with our loving our pets. And they're like, why in the world do you want to be involved with an animal like that? You know, why would you share love and compassion? They could not comprehend our devotion and love and, you know, good feelings towards our pets. Anyway, that was got a bit of a sidetrack, but auras are fascinating things and they tell a lot. And when you get trained to look at an aura also, what I do is you can do it's called a health scan, and you start at the top and you just go like this and you stare at the person and you pick up oddities. Little things will flare up at you. You'll feel a little energy and you'll say, okay, there's something going on here. What is it? And it's usually an illness or a sickness or a weakness, that something happened to that particular area. So then you have to try to discern what it was. What's going on here? What's going on here? What's going on here? So you can do that, but also as you stare, you can have visitors come in, which is fascinating. Something will pop in and come out and pop in. And you're like, okay, we've got somebody here that passed over and they know you and they're showing up, letting themselves be known. And then we try to analyze who it might be, a brother or sister, an aunt and uncle, or something like that. And then sometimes by just staring at the person, you'll actually see a movie or an analogy of something that they're thinking very strongly about, or a trauma. I mean, I've looked at people and I've seen a car accident, or I've seen this kind of thing, and I'll actually see it. I mean, it happens. It's like, it's part of their memory and it presents itself. And it kind of like, you can actually see it. It's an imprint. Remember, we just talked about imprints. It's an imprint, and it's there. It's part of their memories. And that's when you're and you do these readings, you're picking up all these memories, all this information that's floating around to somebody. They're little threads, and you just grab them and you read their memory. Go ahead. Somebody had something? No? All right. I don't want to get off on auras, but auras are a lot of fun. You could train yourself very easily to see them. All right, we're going to talk now about what happens when you die and you continue. Okay, we died and had the near-death experience. Oh no, I want to just tell you a little bit about this book, where she had the death. She died. She had given birth to a baby, and they had, taken the baby into another room. That's back in the days when they took the babies into the nursery and you got to sleep. But unfortunately, she started bleeding out. And she got so weak, she couldn't call anybody. And so she just kind of like died. And she said she was out of the body. And she was so glad because she was so relieved she felt her strength come back. She was met by a couple of monks, which was interesting, people that she had known before and had known them for eons of time, she said. She says, the minute I saw them, I remembered them. And remembered I had seen them from eons and eons. So I knew them for a long time. And then she felt compelled to go visit her family. She got worried about them. And she said, no sooner did I think about it, then boom, I was in the house. She said, I didn't even have to think about how to get there. I wanted to see them. I was there. And she says, and I saw my husband. He was sitting in the easy chair. I saw the kids running around. It was way past their bedtime. I'm thinking, it's past your bedtime. You should be in bed. And I felt like, okay, they'll be okay without me. And she said, I kind of resigned myself. And then I was back in the hospital, and the monk said, okay, let's go. And she said, the white light pulled me, and she saw Jesus. And she had an amazing encounter with Jesus. And in this book, it goes into great detail, questions she asked about who are we? Why are we here? What is this all about? Why was I born? Personal questions, but also generic questions of the human race and why we chose to be here on Earth. Very good questions. And so she went through that process. And then he said, why don't you take a look around a little bit? And she actually kind of wandered around. She said she was impressed with, there were people, what looked like people, busy working on things. She says she saw them weaving like rugs or these beautiful tapestries. Some people have said they also go to a library of souls, a library of books, and you walk into this huge, imagine like a huge white colossal St. Peter's type library, And in there are all these books. Everywhere you look, there's books, books, books everywhere. And somebody will walk over to you and say, okay, come with me. And they follow these people. A lot of them are wearing robes, which is interesting. As you die, there's a lot of beings that seem to be in robes or that they're seen to be in robes. And this being in a robe will take you to a place in this library and place a book in front of you. And it's your book of life. And, you'll get to look at it and see it. So and review it. And all those books in there are all books on everybody in the world. And they gave you yours so that you could review it. So a lot of people who have passed over talk about the library. But she saw a lot of things like that. And then she was told to come back. She went through a Great Depression because she had seen such beauty and felt such love that the thought of coming back to Earth was just horrendous for her, horrendous. And she almost couldn't deal with it. She also said that when she came back, it was like putting on a dirty, heavy, dense, wet coat jacket. And you feel so vibrant and alive, when you're out of the body. And then all of a sudden you're putting on this old jacket that weighs you down. And this is what happens to us. This is one of the ways that we're restricted, is that our vibration is so light and vibrant, but you get on this heavy, dense human body that just lowers your density, lowers your vibration, so that you forget who all you are and where you've been and how powerful you really are. And you become human and the human experience. So I do recommend this book. It was very, very, very interesting. She has a second book out too, but I did not enjoy the second one as much, so I won't recommend the second one. All right. These books are very good at talking about where we go after we die. And the process is rather interesting because what they talk about is as we leave the body and go to the white light, and we pass the border. The border, when a near-death experiencer comes to the border is like the pearly gate. There's a gate, it won't open. So it's your near-death experience, you can't go through the gate. It may be a river and you can't cross the river, okay? So there's a border incident for the near-death experiencers, they're stopped. And for people who get to proceed on, pearly gate opens, they get to go through. They get in a boat and sail across the river, okay? So they actually proceed. And when they proceed, they say, some of them say, as they proceed, it's almost like being at the San Francisco or Los Angeles airport. It's like, or New York airport. It's like, people are going that way, and people are going that way, and people are going that way, and people are going that way. Everybody seems to have a calling as to which way they need to go. And they go to some destination, and they say it's amazing. And they are pulled to their destination. This is after they've had the review with Jesus or God or whatever, and they had their life review. They are pulled to another location. And this location is, they're often met with their guide. And they all talk about their guide, and that their guide is a being that they recognize right away. And this is constant through the death experiencers and through, and again, this information, this death experience information is done by past life regressions, taking people through a life in the 1400s, and they go through the death experience, and they're asked, what happens when you die? I did it with 200 people, and I documented, we had a questionnaire, and I had 3 hypnotists that helped do this over a period of several months. And then I wrote a book and I actually created all this documentation, out of 200 people, 150 saw this, it was amazing. I didn't go to the level that this guy went to. He goes into a real deep sonobalistic level, where mine was a light regression. So, my information is not as good as his. And when I created my book back in 1990, there were other books that started to come out. I had it reviewed by John White, who's an amazing man, but he's very scientific oriented, and he felt that the book wasn't scientific enough. So I kind of like didn't do anything with it. Anyway, when these people are regressed and asked, what happens? What are you doing? They say, my guide came, they got me, I recognize them. I'm so happy to see my guide again. And they're taken to another location. And as they go to that location, they say, oh, there's my friends. There's the people. There's my group. And they immediately recognize a group of people, 5, 10, 20 people that they have been with life after life after life, not your family, not your family. This is your soul group. And there's a soul group that all resonate at your same level. I mean, you can look at your family and know that you love them, but they're not resonating the same as you, okay? And not that I'm saying they're higher or lower, they're just not synchronizing with you. And so you have this little soul group that you've been with for eons of time, and you guys have been developing together. And you know that they go, oh my God, I remember, I know these people. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. And they wave and they go, hey, how was your trip? How was your trip? What did you learn? How was your class? Your class, your trip to Earth. I mean, this is amazing stuff. This is that this isn't our home. Our home is there. Okay, this is where we came from. And we're recognized, we identify, we feel happy, love, there's no pain, there's no fretting, there's no worries. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, so it's an amazing, wonderful place to be. And there's this joyful connection with these people. You've known them for so long, and they're eager to hear about your story. You know, what happened? What'd you do? Who are you? What was your play? And you get to share with them and talk with them. And then during this time, you are also brought before a group of the elders. We'll call them the elders. Okay. And this is fascinating to me, and it's mind-boggling that you're brought before, let's say, a group of 5 gentlemen, 4 or 5 gentlemen in white robes. They call them the White Brotherhood sometimes. And they are very composed. They sit there. You stand in front of them. You feel like, oh my gosh, you know, they know everything about you. And they also ask, how do you feel about your life? What did you learn? Did you accomplish your goals? Remember last week, we talked a little bit about before we come, we create some goals. We want to have a life plan and a projection of where we want to go and what we want to do. So that they ask them, how did you achieve your goals? How did you do? Do you feel comfortable with what you did? Did you fail? But they weren't real over judging. See, remember this? We talked about this, that before we come in, we have a life plan, and that life plan incorporates some things that we wanted to do. We wanted to learn responsibility. We wanted to learn, be graciousness. We wanted to learn something. So we built that into our life plan. And we knew that when we were born, we only had 50 years to live because we already picked a death date. You already know you only have 50 years to do it. You have 80 years to do it. You have 10 years to do it. And then as you go, if you're not on track or you can't deal with what is being presented to you, you have free will to deviate, but you're not learning from it. You're like, I'm not going to do it. Okay. So when you go before this White Brotherhood, they're like, okay, did you stay on the plan? Did you learn? Did you grow? Did you accomplish? How do you feel about it? And they say, when I stand before these beings, I know I can't lie. They know, they already know, but they want to know how I feel about things. And suicides are of particular interest. The suicides stand before these people, these beings. They got caught up in emotion. They got caught up in drama. And these beings understand that. And they understand that they wasted a life. A lot of effort went into making that life possible for us. And for us to have given up is sad, but they're not going to send them to hell for it. Okay. It's a growth opportunity. It's a failure, and it's a learning. And I remember reading about one in particular person, I think it was in one of these books, had committed suicide a couple of times. And this was kind of their mode of escape. And so they were counseled, they were talked to and counseled. And one of our things that we have to do on the other side is to assimilate everything that we've been, everything that we just encountered on earth in this past life, add it to the lives that we had before, and get a broad perspective of who we really are. Outside of the emotions, outside of family drama, outside of everything, who are we really? And then we begin to think, well, I need to do this or I need to do that. And there's a self-reflection and the understanding that suicide or running away is not going to get us where we need to get. And unfortunately, because there was a weakness there, because there was a challenge that we weren't able to stand up to, either they'll keep you longer on the other side for healing, or they will allow you a lifetime that will be more fun, which will provide you more substance, more affirmations, make you stronger and better before a lifetime where you have to face stuff again, okay? Because just throwing you right back in and not preparing you is not going to help you, all right? So they're very good about trying to shore you up, get you ready, so that you're properly equipped to dealing with what you need to do. So if you are in relationships that are detrimental to your health and well-being, because you hate that person or there's a karmic tie with that person, they're not going to allow you to come back together right away. That one needs to develop and grow and learn, not to be whatever. You need to grow and learn and to be stronger. And then a couple lifetimes later, they may allow you guys to be together, okay, again. So it's really quite fascinating what they do on the other side. There's a lot of positive reinforcements. The amazing thing is that it's so much more than what we consider ourselves as souls. There are people that talk about, and again, I'll talk about Dolores Cannon. She has amazing information about people that say, I learned how to create energy and use energy and form energy and create things with energy. So it's not just simple human activity over there. There seems to be an ability to be much more on the other side than we are here on Earth. So it's an amazing thing, the astral world. We stay there as long as we need to. We need to get rid of feelings and associations that we had when we were emotionally tied to Earth. So it's a burning off time period. It's a reflection. It's a relaxing. It's a healing time. And you're with beings that I guess care very, very much about you. Now, while you're here on the astral planes, your family may be on another level, another astral level. And the family that you just left, they may be here, and you may be over here. Always can visit, always talk to them. But remember, if you've been in many, many lifetimes, you've had lots of moms and lots of dads and lots of brothers and lots of sisters and lots of husbands and lots of wives. Remember, a soul is neither male nor female. A soul comes into human form and decides to experience life as a male or a female. And once we die, we go back to being neither nor, or either or, or both. But you are allowed, when you're in the astral plane, if they're there, you can visit with them. Now, I'm gonna pause for a minute because next we're going to talk about the people that don't go. Next week, we're going to talk about coming back down. But right now, I want to talk about that there are souls that do not go here where they're supposed to go. They stay here, and they're known as ghost. Okay. All right. Pause for a minute. Any questions or comments? It's awful quiet tonight. Are you guys there? Anybody? No?
I'm good.
All right.
Okay. Yes, he has a question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Great class, by the way.
Great.
So I was wondering about if everybody chooses how long their lifespan is going to be before they come down to Earth. You were talking about that fair amount last class, and then you just mentioned it this
Yep.
class. So is suicide, is that something different from that timeline, or is that like they picked, okay, 20, and then they do suicide at 20, and then that is the time that they picked?
No, it's a disruption. It's a, it wasn't planned. They were supposed to be longer, and they made a free will choice. And even my mother's hand, I looked at her palm one time. She had longer to live, and she died within the year. I did not see it. I saw that she had originally been projected to live longer, but medical conditions were such that it terminated her. And see, we always have the free will. We're always in positions of deciding what we can and cannot do. And our physical body can only absorb so much abuse. And, the life plan was supposed to be this, and then we, maybe cause early termination due to choices, free will. So yeah, some things are not totally foreseen. They're there as a possibility, but if you go to the left or the right, it won't take you to an early demise, or it would have. So good question. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? And if anybody else has a comment too on what the question was, feel free to share. That's what we're all about. Go ahead.
Hi, Mary. So I have a question about when a person is deviating from this plan that they've created in their sort of, I guess, in the just before their incarnation, how do they know that they are deviating from their life plan? Do they have an intuition? I'm talking about kind of not necessarily a person who, not everyone has a conscious connection with their guides and angels. It may be more of an unconscious thing. It may be something that happens through dreams. It may be intuition, things of this nature. So for a person who, doesn't perhaps have the same conscious connection, where they could simply, they're in this kind of communication where they get information, they get communication, they get guidance in a direct way. If it's more of an indirect form, and if they are choosing to go off of this plan to deviate, right, to take detour, how will they know that? Is that something that, is that synchronicity? Do they get, are there external events that happen, like synchronicities, or they kind of get like an intuition or a sense of, gee, I'm really, really off course here? I mean, how would the average person know that?
Excellent question. I think there are guides and angels that are always nudging us in certain directions when we start getting off course, but we don't. All of us know. I have a feeling, I know I'm here to do something. I have this urgency that I'm supposed to be doing something, but I don't know what it is, because that's veiled from us. And as we go through life, we have to kind of go with our comfort zone, feeling I'm doing something good, I'm doing something right. And as we, kind of maybe selfishly deviate from one way or the other, the guides and angels give us, that is not a direct communication, but there'll be nudges, like you said, synchronicities, where someone will present themselves out of the blue. A book will come out of the blue to you. Someone will give you something that you needed at that particular time in your life. And if you pray and open yourself and say, I really, really want to be on my path, help guide me. Oh, it's amazing. Have you ever gone to the bookstore and stood there and all of a sudden, boom, there's the book. You know that's the one that you're
Yeah.
supposed to pick up. It's almost like hops off the shelf at you. Or someone will give you a
Yeah.
present, gift. And this is them trying to help awaken you. And it could be as simple as having a conversation with somebody. So we are helped and guided, but I think all of us are falling short of what we want to need to do. But if we can do at least 80%, we'll be doing. And if we keep self help for others and self-sacrificing and love as our core, then I don't think you can go and deviate too wrong. You feel responsible and helpful to others, you'll still accomplish those goals. But one of the interesting things about this book too was talking about triggers when you come back down to help you stay on course, to help you, because before you're born, you even project out meeting certain souls that are going to play an integral role in your life. And you need to know those people when you meet them or run into them. Something needs to happen to make you click. And so before you're born, they were saying that they implant in both of you some sort of signal. And it could be nothing more than a laughter. It could be nothing more than a flip of the hair or something like that. And that'll make it click. And all of a sudden you'll realize that that person is important. And you may not even know why, but all of a sudden you'll have a relationship develop that's going to be either positive or negative. Because remember, we are brought back together with people that we've had very negative experiences with before, because the law of karma says you have to work this out. You've got to at least neutralize. You don't have to have the Jesus level of I love everyone and accept everyone, but at least neutralize that anger and that hatred and that feeling for revenge. So keeping that core, but then listening to yourself saying, I have deep within me the desire to work with crystals, or I have the deep desire to heal. And you can't be a doctor or a nurse, but there's Reiki healing. There's all kinds of healing possibilities where you can grow and to learn. But staying on the major things, as far as some of the big ticket items that you were supposed to do, the angels and the guides, even if they're not having direct conversation, are definitely helping you and guiding you and being open to it and saying, I'm open, I'm listening, just tell me, will help a lot, the help, versus being closed off, which most of the people are closed off and have no clue. Good question. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Anybody else even wants to comment to that? You don't have to just ask questions, but.
Yeah, well, the other person that was talking about the timelines and the suicide. And most of the time when you hear about suicides, you think about somebody who, before their time and for some reason or other, they're troubled and they make a decision to take their own life. But I also thought about, and I read a very interesting story years ago, just an article in a magazine really, but, and it was about somebody who they had AIDS actually, so it was terminal, but, and that brings up that question about doctor-assisted suicide and the ethics about that. And I don't know, that just comes up, when you hear about suicide, it's like, well, you're kind of close enough anyway, right? You're not going to, you're terminal. They're not going to be able to do anything for you. And that's a big, I don't want to turn it into anything personal or whatever like that, but it makes me think of that. And I wonder if that won't mess with your karma, because, then you're cheating life, because you're kind of wimping out. You're not seeing it through to the end, as close as you may be to it. And I think, I wouldn't do that, even if it was some kind of painful disease that I was, it'll be that much more of a release when you finally go. It's the way I look at it. So I wouldn't want to do a doctor-assisted suicide. But anyway, I just needed to throw that in there because it made me think of it when they brought that up.
I think it's a very good point. And let me just throw this back out to you. If God wants you to suffer, would he or it allow you to have an opportunity to terminate sooner? Okay. So if you come to a decision that there's no reason for you to continue to suffer. And I support that 100%. We put our dogs down when they're suffering. Why force them to suffer? Then if you make that decision, I'm done, I've had enough, I'm not going to go through this horrible pain anymore. The problem with that sometimes is you can be a horrible pain 1 week and then feel better 3 weeks down the road. But when you reach a point where it's just doesn't make any sense, I see no reason not to. And when you make that decision, if God absolutely wants you to continue going through that pain, then you won't find a way to take care of yourself, to leave. So it would be denied to you. But if you feel that this is just something that you're ready to do, I had a lifetime where we actually lived as long as we wanted to, and then we were still healthy and vibrant. And we decided that our mission and our whatever it was time to go. And we just went to a certain room and laid on a slab and shut down the body. And it was funny too, because I'm going through this process with my hypnotist, telling him how you shut down the body. And as I'm starting to go through the process, I'm thinking, Mary's thinking, maybe we don't want to do this. Maybe I don't want to remember too well how to do this. And I said to him, maybe I don't want to, maybe we shouldn't go into detail of how to do this, because I don't want to effectively do it to myself. So we stopped. But it was kind of interesting that in ancient times, maybe they did make educated, intelligent decisions, that life had been fulfilled to a certain point. So I advocate that life should never be to the point of suffering for no reason at all. And if God doesn't want you to terminate that life, then he will create an environment that will not allow you to do it. So
Yeah, that's a very good point. And the article I did read was about, this person was terminally ill with AIDS, and they actually traveled to Switzerland, I guess.
okay.
Because they allow it to happen over there.
Yep.
And a lot of their friends went over there with them. And it
Yep.
was, and so it was kind of a party, and we all got together for one time, and the idea being, well, they would remember you still while you were kind of still the way you were, instead of all hollowed out and, not in control of your faculties and all of this kind of thing. And
Right.
and a way of being able to check out with some dignity. And
Absolutely.
and so but it's an interesting thing though, isn't it though, right? So we'll just leave it at there. Thanks.
Yeah. And we leave it in God's hands. And if the opportunity is there and we make a decision and God doesn't want us to do it, then he will create something that it won't happen. So it's a powerful being over there that will make us make us pretty much exist what we should learn, what we should learn. Anybody else? All right, going to talk about ghosts. All right. In the process of the death, there are people that are so attached to Earth that they cannot let go. The white light's there, the beings are there. They're like, oh, nope, I'm not leaving. And a lot of these, there's different categories of these kind of people. And the number one, believe it or not, is the sudden death. Okay, you're driving along in your car and bam, you never saw it coming. You just got broadsided, killed instantly. The next thing you know, you're out of the body, you're floating up there, you're looking down, you go, whoa, that's a bad car accident. Oh, wait a minute, that's my red car. Oh, yeah, that's me. Oh, man. So they never got time to digest. They never saw it coming, okay? So especially if they're young people, especially if they're teenagers or young people that are full of life. I mean, they had a future. They felt that I'm too young to die, They're not going to let go. Some of them are not going to let go. And they're called, and there's the white light, and they're like, oh no, they stay right there at the scene of the accident. And then they go to their family home, and they're there, and they can hear, they can see, they feel they can talk, but everyone's ignoring them. They're walking through the living room, everyone's ignoring them. No one knows they're there. They're frustrated. They're so upset. They don't understand what happened. And this is why the funeral is actually a very important step for not only us, but for the people who've passed over, because it really is a process where they can wow, there's me in the casket. That's, everybody's here saying goodbye, and they can hear everything that's said. They hear what you're thinking. So if you didn't have time to say goodbye, you do have time to say goodbye now. They're at the funeral. Majority of them go. Not all of them go. Majority of them do go to the funeral. In fact, I read one story where she said, yeah, I was sitting right up there on my casket, watching people come and look at me, and I was listening to what they said. And by the way, it was a rather cheap casket that they bought for me, but it was hilarious. But the whole perspective is they are not feeling as much grief as we are. And so they're sitting there, but the ones that can't let go will continue to stay. Those of us who crossed over will still attend the funeral very often. Some of them said, I really didn't want to watch myself get burned. Now, this is a key point, because some religions say you need your body after you die. And yet everyone who's gone through a near-death experience said, peace out, goodbye body, I don't need it. Do whatever you want with it, feed the corn with it. I don't care. So the death process, but many of them do go to the funeral, and it's a process for them to understand that they're dead. I was at a funeral for my ex-boyfriend. He died young. And it was interesting too, because he had lost a leg to diabetes, where they amputated one of his legs, and he died a few years after that. And I went to the funeral, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I saw him. He was up on stage. There was a priest, and the priest was talking, and my friend Eddie, he was up on the stage with the priest, feeling like he was all that. And he sat in the priest's chair, and he had both of his legs. Okay. He had both of his legs. He was in pajamas too, which was the strangest thing. But follow me here, because this is amazing what happened. And he was feeling all that. And he wasn't like looking at any of us, but he was there. And I was watching him, and he was kind of watching the priest. And all of a sudden the priest went to, Eddie had been cremated, and he had the box up on the podium, and the priest had this incense, and the priest walked over with the incense to the box that he was, his ashes were in. And the priest started doing this. And all of a sudden, Eddie stopped being funny, and he looked at the priest, and he got up. Next thing, he was there next to the priest. And he looked at the box of ashes, and I remember his whole demeanor changed. And there was this kind of horrific understanding that he was in the box, and that this was it. And maybe that's what the incense does, is separates the soul from the body, because all of a sudden he was gone. And I didn't see him at the funeral. I mean, he was gone. So it was very, very interesting that, number one, his body was back intact. He got all his appendages back. And number two is the understanding, the realization, the emotional continuation you have after you die. So you're still involved, and you're still aware, and you're still watching the funerals, the wakes, all of these things. You're a little less emotional than the family, but you're there, and you can comfort them. So many of people who have passed over, they don't leave right away. They will stay close by if they feel, if it's a mom with young children, or a husband with a wife and children that he's left, they may feel compelled to stay around for a while to help the family get through the death. There'll be a comforting, there'll be signs, they'll leave little signs and stuff. But this isn't necessarily a ghost. This is a soul who hasn't left yet. They just want to stay there's no time on the other side, so they're not aware of time. But even then, they don't stay very long yet. The wife is distraught, but she needs to know that the papers are in the folder on the third shelf. She doesn't know that, okay? Well, the husband will stay around in her environment, trying to let her know. And if he can't get through to her, he may talk to the children. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, on breakfast time, the little one will say, hey, Mom, Dad wants you to know that the papers are in the third shelf. Okay, so there is a way that they can communicate to the people that they've left behind, but they're not going to stay there. They're not going to become a haunting. They're not going to become a long-term ghost. They're just temporarily transitioning. And after he feels comfortable that the wife knows where the papers are and that she's going to be okay, he'll leave. Now, even when they leave, they can be called back. And this is very important, people, because we can hold these people, these souls back, and we shouldn't be. Our grief and our desire to be with those people, like, Mom, you can't leave me, you just can't. Well, she feels that, and she like wants to go, but you're pulling her back and pulling her back. Even at the deathbed, if you sit next to a person, 90% of the time, they really can't die with you sitting next to them. How many people have had the experience of sitting with their loved one and sitting there on the deathbed, sitting there, and then decide to go down to the cafeteria for a quick sandwich. They go down the cafeteria and they die while you're down at the cafeteria. It's because you're holding on to them. They can't let go. You're not letting them go. So one of the things we have to approach sometimes is not our desire, but letting them love them and letting them let go. Even tell them it's okay, you can let go. And they need that sometimes. They need you to let go. In the one that I was telling you about where I floated through the ceiling, I was, my daughter today was my niece back then on Nantucket. I lived on Nantucket, which is an interesting story because I actually went to Nantucket to find my grave. But anyway, that's another story. But anyway, I died. I did die. I was so sick. And oh my God, she kept putting soup in my mouth, forcing me to suck the soup. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to die. I'm an old man. I just want to die. And she needed to go to get some sleep. So she told her husband to come sit and watch me, make sure I'm okay all night. Well, she went to sleep and I sat there and waited. Sure enough, her husband, which I didn't like, he went to sleep. The minute he went to sleep, I was out of there. I died and boop, I was out of the body. I floated up, and I went through the ceiling and I'm up there looking down. And there was a being there that says, okay, come on. I said, oh no. I'm going to stay right here because I want to watch what's going to happen to him when she wakes up and finds out he was sleeping while I died. I'm going to watch this. It was funny. So I sat there and I waited and I'm looking, I'm watching and waiting. And this being kept saying, the person, come on, you got to leave. I'm like, no, go away. Well, finally, I went with them. I didn't get to see what happened to my brother-in-law or whoever it was. And so you get to watch, but the emotion of her holding on to me wouldn't allow me to leave. Okay, so I couldn't leave until she wasn't there, and then I was free to go. So keep that in mind. One other side thing on this: if you want to keep somebody there, if they're very ill and you don't want them to die, you need to be with them around the 4 a.m. mark. There's a thing called the prana, the life force. And the life force is an energy that begins to wane as soon as sundown goes down. That's why the little birds go to sleep, okay? All the animals. And it goes lower and lower and lower. Life prana, the life force. This is the prana, the life force for us. The lowest level is 4 a.m. in the morning, right around that time. That's when all the molecules and the energies, bridges collapse at 4 a.m. Ceilings, roofs cave in. This is when the molecules are the lowest. The energy is the lowest. And people who are susceptible to dying, this is their lowest energy. If you're sitting next to them, holding their hand, sending them your energy, reinforcing your energy, help them get through that wee hours of the morning, the lowest levels of energy. So anyway, let's get back on track with the ghosts. So the ghosts that the people that have had sudden death, that don't know that they're dead, they actually need prayers. Okay, you have to be careful praying on your own because these souls are distraught. Praying on your own attracts them to you. And if you're not strong enough, or you're going through emotional trauma too, you're not going to be strong enough to help them. So what you need is getting back to the churches and the church prayer groups they are the ones that will help the person understand that they've passed over. Usually at the funeral, they'll understand it and they'll be able to let go. But sometimes you need the power of the prayer to help them pass over also. Another person that becomes a ghost is a person that is so dedicated or involved in life. Like you own your own business, you live and breathe your business. You're maybe hooked on drugs. You're hooked on something where your body physically needs that something. Those are hard to let go. When they die, they pass out over, but they don't go where they're supposed to go because they have that hunger. That man that owned that business 24/7, and that was his life, he's going to report to work every day. He's going to go to that business and he's going to be there when they take out his desk and take out all his personal belongings. And it will be so upsetting. It'll be so upsetting for him. He doesn't understand. The elderly couple that lived in that house for 50 years and they died, maybe even died in that house. They're not going to leave. Or maybe the wife did, but the husband doesn't want to leave. This is his home. And so we have in the state of Connecticut, or we used to have a rescue team that would go to a house that is haunted. Now, these are souls that are not bad. They're just don't want to leave. And this elderly man in this house, he was fine. A family moved in there. And then they started tearing down his kitchen. That pissed him off. He built that kitchen. So now he's upset because they're tearing down the kitchen to remodel his kitchen. So he's acting out. And when they act out, they blink lights. They hit electrical, bells, doorbells, telephones. They love to blink the lights. And they can, even if they get really upset, they can knock pictures down and move some objects. And if they get really, really upset, then they can really start pushing things around. And those become hauntings. And those hauntings need to be resolved. And most of them have some drama, trauma, or anger involved. And in our rescue group that goes to the house, they usually have a couple of people plus a medium. And a medium is a person who can talk to the dead. All right. This person is trained to be sensitive to, and I'm not. That's one thing I chose not to do. Don't want to be involved with that. But it's an amazing, beautiful thing when these people, you have to be very strong personality, because think of all these things that you can draw to you. And this person can go into the house. And in this case, they went to the house, and the medium immediately said, there's an elderly gentleman here who is upset. This was his house. And what she does is talks to him and says, do you understand you've passed over? This isn't your world anymore. Is there someone there that wants to take you somewhere? And the man talks to her telepathically. Yeah. He's been here forever. I'm ignoring him. I don't want to go with him. She says, but you need to go. Maybe your wife's on the other side waiting for you. And, blah, 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 blah. So there's a conversation. And finally, the man is convinced that this is no longer where he should be. And he leaves willingly. He will go with this being to the white light and go through the process of death. But meanwhile, we have hauntings where the ghosts are adamant about not leaving. But again, just like we were talking earlier, sometimes the haunting will be a residue energy from a traumatic event that impressed upon itself in this environment and is reactivated when some energy, like a living person, comes in contact with it, and it reactivates it. But these are usually repetitive in nature. A monk or a priest that would every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning go to the window and do his prayers or something, and he died. But if someone happens to be in the room, they'll see a priest walk by, go to that window to say their prayers at 7 o'clock in the morning. So this is more of an imprint. That soul is not there anymore. The ghost is not there. So you have to decide if that's what you're dealing with in this haunted house. Then you have poltergeist activity. And the poltergeists are called noisy ghosts. It's a German word for noisy ghost. And these ghosts, or these beings, you can have, you can almost get into beings that are not dead people. And I'm not, again, I stay away from that. We used to have people called Earl and Lorraine Warren here in Connecticut, and they were amazing people that would go to houses that had activity, but they were looking for more like the negative energies. I won't call them demons necessarily, but the frisky spirits, not people that died and crossed over, but other stuff. And they talked about this, but I never wanted to go listen to them because I didn't want to bring home anything. You know, I didn't know what they were dealing with. And but thank God they deal with them. And they had a lot of conversations about what they experienced in the 50 years that they worked and dealt with that. But a lot of the ones that I talk about are the ghosts that have somebody who has refused to go on, and they're there and they just need to be talked to. Okay. Some people I've talked to, or my students, will say, oh, I have a ghost in the house, but I'm kind of used to it and I kind of like it. And I don't mind sharing the house with it if it wants to stay there. You know, children and animals are very susceptible, know these things. Have you ever watched your cat or dog and they're sitting there and they're like watching something walk by, or something in the up at the ceiling go, and they're watching, moving it back and forth? And
That's immediately what I thought of when you said about the people who die and they don't realize they're dead, and then they're home and everybody's ignoring them. And I said, yeah, except for the cat. Yeah, wide eyes, all bug eyed. What the heck? Oh, we must be seeing an insect or something, right? That's what we always say, right?
Yeah, and they'll follow it around the room, or even then they'll go and their little hair will stand up. They're not happy. They don't like this thing. Or the dogs will bark and look at something and bark at it. My little granddaughter, her grandpa, not my ex-husband, but her other grandpa died, and he showed up, and she'd be sitting there with her father in this one case, and her father was cutting her fingernails, and she says, Pop's here. He wants to make sure you're not going to hurt my fingers by cutting my fingernails. And my son-in-law goes, my dad's here? She goes, yeah, she's standing right here. He's watching. So he died very suddenly and was not aware he was dead. So he stayed for a while. I don't think he's around anymore, but he did stay for a while. But I think all of you, if you've ever felt that you had an encounter, if you in your dreams felt that you talked to your mother or your father or someone who passed over, and when you looked at them and saw them, they looked more healthy, they looked younger, they were vibrant, the odds are, I'm going to say 99% sure that you encountered some time with the person who passed over. Absolutely. Don't let anybody tell you didn't. They do come back. They'll come back in drama. They'll come back in trauma. They'll come back in excitement. If a newborn baby is born, they want to see it, they'll come back. They'll be there to see it. If someone in the family is going to pass over, they may come back to be one of the ones to help them pass over. So they're still engaged, but you have to be careful in calling them back unnecessarily. They are busy wherever they are, doing what they need to do. And they have one eye, they're aware of what's going on here. And if we need them, they'll be there without a moment's hesitation. But you can't be self-concerned and pull on them unnecessarily. If you need them, call out to them, absolutely. But keep in mind that they need to go where they're supposed to go. I don't know how long the turnaround time is. There has been occasion when a grandchild may be an aunt or somebody who's passed over but come back to the same family. We don't find reincarnation necessarily with the same biological families. There may be reasons that you need to experience a life in another place. So it would not be conducive to your growth to come back to the same biological genetic family over and over again. You need to be more diverse. But it has happened. And, you know, I've read many stories about little kids, especially turning and looking at somebody and saying, do you remember when I broke the mirrors of your car with my baseball bat? And the person would stand there and look and think, that was my older brother who died years ago. And then realize that this little guy that was, you know, just talking 2 or 3 years old was his reincarnated brother who died years ago. So, you know, it's kind of interesting when that happens. It's kind of an in-your-face moment when you get validation of the people coming back. And we're going to talk more about reincarnation next week. But for ghosts and hauntings, mediums can talk to people. However, you need to be well trained, you need to have protection, and you need to know what you're doing. Some mediums like, oh yeah, I let them take over me. We've had some amazing mediums here in Connecticut where they would allow another entity come in and talk. And I remember this one woman, Jane something or somebody, and she would allow an Irish man to come into her and talk. So she would be in front of you and then she'd relax and then she'd become this Irish guy with a male brogue. I mean, she totally changed. And if you weren't ready for that, it was like, whoa, what just happened? But you have to be very strong personality. You have to know what you're doing. And Ouija boards, okay, another thing, contact the dead. Well, guess what? If you're not properly trained and you're playing with the Ouija board, and you're opening yourself up to whoever wants to come in, well, guess what? There's a lot of people that were just executed, and there's all people that you know, are earthbound because they're alcoholics, and they're going to come around you, and you don't know how to decipher that. You don't know how to protect yourself from those types, and they may, oh, okay, let's do the Ouija board. Here's a message for you. You know, run away from home, or, you know, they're giving you messages and you go, oh, wow, that came to me. Well, you don't know you don't know who's giving you this information because you haven't protected yourself. You haven't given the prayer. There's a prayer that you give that say, only my guides and angels and the most powerful white light beings are allowed to talk to me. And that is sending out your positive protection energy and defining who you want to talk to. Okay, you can't just open the door. I do channeling. When you channel, you have to protect yourself, and you have to say, I don't want to channel or talk to just anybody. I want only the more higher level beings. But even then, you don't know who you're getting. But at least you're going through the motions of protecting yourself. And then I do automatic typing, which is interesting, where you sit there at I used to be at the typewriter, which was hilarious. But then I went to a computer, which is a lot easier. And because of the typewriter, it was type, 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 ding, and you hit the carriage, type, 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 ding. And then if you forget to ding, then you've already typed, you know, over and over and over something. So you kind of lose some of your information. But you go through a protection technique. There are some books that you can, or some instructions of how to learn to be a channeler or to learn to be a medium. I don't want to be a medium, but I don't mind channeling. Now, mediums, God bless them. Because how many of us are just torn apart by losing somebody we love? And when you go to a medium, they will contact, or if your loved one comes to her and in the room with you, she can pick up and say, okay, your father's here. Have you watched the mediums on television? I mean, some of them are amazing. Some of them, you know, you got the New Jersey housewife, and, you know, you got the one from California, the young boy there, young fella there. They're fantastic, and they're right on the money. But one thing, okay, a medium can be talking to the dead, or they can be picking up the information from you, because remember, there's all this information floating around, and I just grab strings of information and I can, you know, read you. That's what they're doing too. They can do that. They follow strings, conversations you had with your dead father, you know, feelings that you have about him, issues that you had about him. He may not even be there, but she's picking up this information as if he's there. And she may not realize that that's what she's doing. But when these energies come, they may have an important something to say and resolve issues. And so a medium is an amazing person to be able to go to. We have some here in the state of Connecticut that are just fantastic, fantastic. All right, I'll pause for a minute if anybody wants to ask a question or to make a comment.
Yeah, one about the well, people who have passed on, but they're earthbound because they were executed, or just a little anecdote here. Or what'd you say, alcoholics? And I was like, well, maybe that's why they call them a spirit shop.
Yeah. Can you imagine what's attracted in an alcoholic place? And here's one little other piece that you may not realize. If you remember, we got the soul in the human body. If you are drunk out of your mind, your willpower has been negated and your attachment to the body has been loosened. And until you become full capacitated again, something else may come and occupy that body. And it's called possession. Even for a temporary short period of time, while you're drunk out of your mind or drugged out of your mind, it may use the body to run around and do things, commit murders, steal, do something horrible. And then it's out, you're back in, and you're like, whoa, I didn't do that. I don't remember doing that. Well, no, you didn't, you weren't there. So that can happen too, supposedly. And where do you attract those kind of people? In drug houses and alcohol places and places where, your willpower could be negated to a large degree. Okay. Any of you have you seen a ghost? Have you had an encounter? Or even how about little somethings being left by your loved one to let you know that they're okay? Pennies or something, a little something that you observed shortly after the death that made you feel that they were trying to let you know they're okay. Any of you have that encounter?
I didn't, but my mom did. After her sister died, her sister used to always call at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Every single day they would talk at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And on the day after she died, the phone rang at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And my mother picked it up. And she said, who is this? And the call said, this is Louise. And my mother was like, huh? And like, she was really, really shocked. Well, it turned out to be my aunt's daughter, who's also named Louise, but she ended up coincidentally, she says, something told me to call you. And it was exactly 5 o'clock. And she said, this is Louise. And so my mother says, my sister was definitely trying to get a hold of me to let me know she's okay.
Absolutely. And they like to do that. And sometimes they're not the ones that are actively doing that, but they're because when they cross over, sometimes they're a little disoriented. They haven't learned how to navigate being out of the body. But their angels and guides want you to know. So they help to coordinate some of that, that little indications for the first couple of weeks, maybe even let you know they're okay.
Yeah.
So fascinating. But doorbells will ring, lights will flicker, especially if they're upset. But if they want to get your attention, they'll let themselves know. And electricity is one of their favorite or easiest ways to get your attention.
Yeah, I got one. We were staying in a cottage. We rented a cottage in Jacksonville, Florida, and we woke up one night. We didn't see a ghost, but we both woke up. And there was like this tapping. It was one of these beds that has those frames that go all the way on the top and everything like this.
Yeah.
And there was a ceiling fan running. It's Florida, and I think we had the windows open. But and I did have a shirt hanging up on it, but it wasn't enough to make that tapping noise and stuff. And we were looking around and couldn't figure out what the heck it was. We had the lights on for a minute, and it was like 3 a.m. or something like this. And as it turns out, that the owner of the property, his mother or grandmother lived in there, and she actually died in that room.
Oh,
Yeah, so we think that might have been what it was. It didn't really, it kind of creeped us out a little bit, but
Yep.
it wasn't like we didn't sleep the rest of the time there. We were okay.
well, I've seen TV has a lot of those shows now where they have the groups of paranormal groups, and they go out to places to find the hauntings and whatnot. And some of it they catch on cameras, pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing. Some of it, is probably staged when you look on YouTube, but some of it you have to like say, yeah, somebody's out there trying to get your attention. It's cool. That's cool. Anybody else?
No.
I do want to mention learning to channel. You can get little books or pull it up online and learn how to protect yourself and do the various steps. We also talked last week about remote viewing, and I mentioned that remote viewing and mind projection and astral projection. And let me mention, astral projection doesn't just happen in near-death experiences or in death. Astral projection, which means the astral body leaves the physical body, happens every night when you sleep. It's imperative that the soul extracts itself from the physical body. It may not go far, but it needs to disengage. And this is where you feel like you're flying, falling, or if you jerk, like all of a sudden your whole body goes, whoop, like this, not just a twitch, but the whole body. That's when you come back down, you landed kind of hard, okay? You kind of crash landed back in your body. But astral projection is getting out of the body during your sleep, flying, falling, moving around, and you may have dreams about going places. And astral projection, you can go anywhere you want, and that's a conscious one. But you may at night have dreams about going to school or classes or talking to people that in your sleep. But when you wake up in the morning and go, I don't know that person here on earth, but I'm very familiar with that person in my dreams. So you're engaging with somebody in your dreams. You may go to places that seem familiar in your dreams. So this could be what's called astral projection. You're going out of the body and going somewhere. You may go to the astral world. You may go up there. You may actually go up here in your sleep, okay, and converse with people. And then you come back to the body when it's time to wake up. I have this little book. Remember, I told you it's not hard to develop the abilities. Look how big it's not very thick as to the steps of developing your remote viewing or your mental and astral projection. You can do it and actually be able to do it on your own. And I mentioned Elizabeth Kubler-Ross here in Connecticut used to train paraplegics how to astrally project at will so that they could go places and go to the ball game or to be out of the body. So amazing information, amazing stuff. When you really get, oh yeah, this is Robert Moser. Oh, okay. It's getting close to 9 o'clock. I always try to stay very punctual because I appreciate everybody coming on from this time to that time. So I'm going to be wrapping it up right now. If anybody has anything last to say or question before we wrap up for the evening. Anybody? No? Okay, there's a lot of material, and I thank everybody for joining me. We're going to kind of continue in this vein next week because we're going to be talking about reincarnation and coming back. And how do we prepare for that? How do we plan for that? What is the law of karma? What is past life regression show us? How does that work with healing? Because that's what I was involved in, is healing with past life regressions. And because we're going to talk about that, we'll get into a little bit of the history, ancient history, that's a little different than what we have in our history books, which brings us into another whole concept of one of the things I want everybody to kind of realize as we go through all this material is things are not what we think they are. There's so many things that are outright fabrications, outright lies, outright disinformation. And as we sort through all this, we have to go with our gut feeling. What feels good to us? What feels right to us? What makes sense? Even this astral world place, I think it's much more complicated and much more intricate than I'm simplifying. But, you know, we only have 2 hours and we talk and we try to grasp information. So I do the best I can. And I don't know where else this could all go. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope we have some nice warm weather. It's been wonderful getting out there and seeing things start to turn green here in Connecticut and embrace spring. All right.
Hey, Mary,
Yeah.
Mary, good
Yeah.
evening.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Well,
Mary,
Yeah. Yeah.
hi. We're
Hi.
MUFON members. My what? Hang on a second. Okay, so there we are.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. We're MUFON members. My name is Eggles and my wife Patricia. We heard you about a week ago, or I did a couple weeks ago. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. There you are.
And so we wanted to tell you, we missed last week, but we really enjoyed what you had to offer. And my wife is curious how we were in Connecticut as well.
We are.
And so if
I
we
was
want-
trying to find you are you on social media? Do you have a website?
No, I don't even do Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't do that. Where do you live now?
In Manchester, Connecticut.
Oh, you do? Oh, you're in Manchester. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I don't go out. I don't do any of that. I just kind of, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet.
Okay. Well, that's
It-
fine.
Oh, I still work full time. So this is kind of like my extra activity, but once I retire.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying this and
Oh, you're amazing. I really do appreciate everything that you're telling us.
good. Well, all of us are learning and trying to study, and sharing information is one of the fastest ways that we can get validation that we're comfortable with and feel right and maybe be pointed in a direction or get information that we need to learn about. So it's a sharing as far as I'm concerned.
And we
So
appreciate you sharing.
it's wonderful that the two of you together are learning. This is what is so wonderful. But one of the reasons I learned to teach was because I had nobody to talk to. So I like, okay, fine, nobody wants to listen to me. I'll go teach it to other people. And so that was what my catalyst. That's what made me do what I had to do. But to have someone, you know, because so many people, you know, it's sad when you can't share information with somebody that you're close to, you know. So I'm glad the two of you can share. This is great.
Well, thank you. Some of the things you mentioned a couple weeks ago, I came in at the tail end of it, and we just had a sermon from our pastor that tied into the things you were talking about, where all the things you were connecting to. There's so much prayer out there now, and the end times, and I don't know if it's tribulation, but but you were resonating with me, and I came home and told Patricia, I said, this is amazing, because we are talking about it in a very religious sense, and now Mary is bringing this into from some spirit, religion, everything combined. And I go, oh my.
They're all talking the same language.
Yeah, they're all talking the same language, a little bit different perspectives and angles, but it all ties together. So it was very compelling, and we want to join in and thank you. We want to say thank you.
Yeah, there is a
Yes,
war
thank you so
of
much, Mary.
the light and the dark. There absolutely is a war going on right now.
Yes,
It's
yes.
serious. It is serious. We are at
Yes.
precipice. If we do not fight back now with everything we have, we could lose America
Right.
and the world.
Yes.
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 It is something, that's why I said we need to get back into the churches. The people need to be singing praises to God. This light energy needs to be redone. And that's what they tried to stop. They tried to shut this down. This COVID thing was a shutdown. It's very evil what's going on. So we need to fight back. Yeah.
We agree. We're on the same wavelength.
Yes, totally. And
Good.
there's so much more with all the things you're going to talk about in the coming weeks. So we just wanted to, I didn't have my name up there. I don't know why, but
We don't know how to do
but
this.
anyway,
Not either.
we just want to say hi, introduce ourselves, and thank you for taking the time to do this and bring us to another place of thinking and possibilities.
So are you going to be doing this
Thank you.
every Wednesday night?
Mhm.
What is the program?
The program is for 6 weeks. It goes through April 28th. We're going to do reincarnation next week. We're going to talk ancient civilizations the week after that, Atlantis, Lemura, Inner Earth, the Dumbs, where they've got the kids, okay? The trafficking kids. And then we're going to do secret space program, and then aliens and UFOs and those kind of things. So a lot of material.
I'm sorry, every Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yes.
until April 28th. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay. You're
I'm
welcome.
so excited. Thank you.
Good. Right. Thank you. All right. We'll see
Okay,
you
well-
next week, I hope.
Yes, have a good week.
Thank you. God bless. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, Mike? Thank you.